All right, good morning, everyone. Where's the chat? Hold on. Where'd my chat go? There it is. Thanks for the quote this morning, 10. If you think adventure is dangerous, you should try routine. It's lethal. I like that. Morning, guys. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. Another beautiful day. Margin, Aiden, Darth, Fade Doctor, Sal's, Ian, NVIDIA, Golf Nut, Chef. Morning, everyone. Foolish. Emmy, you've been crushing it, man. Keep going. Welcome back. What a day yesterday. Gap fills definitely were the right move. I was a little bit on the wrong side yesterday, but I'm happy with how I traded, and I'm happy with how I accepted my loss and just moved on. It's okay to be wrong every once in a while. You know, you can't. I just sort of had the wrong idea yesterday. I figured upside early morning, a little pop and fade was interesting into some key levels, but we just grinded pretty much for the full gap fill and more. So what a grind back, what a bounce back. Market is shaking off any downside that you see. And today, I think some really interesting setups. So I think a lot of opportunity today. Microsoft is a very interesting setup today. Palantir earnings, continuation there looks primed. Aquilo looks really good today. Meta on the retest of all-time highs. So there's a lot of stuff that should come out of a pullback that we saw last week because it is getting bought up as of now. But there is one level left that I want to be paying attention to today after the pop back higher and the gap fill. There is some major previous lows and a major breakdown point that should be paid attention to today for the potential of maybe a little bit of a stall out or for the potential of a reclaim and a continuation to the upside, pretty much back to all-time highs. If we break this level, like you can see in the title, I expect us back at all-time highs. So big level today that I'm going to talk about and show you guys on the ESNQ. Reclaiming the daily 20 SMA yesterday, very strong on the SPY and the Qs. That was really the key. After we reclaimed that on the SPY and the Qs, it was pretty much just a grind higher. I guess you could call it a lockout rally. That's really what it was. Took an attempt to short the move, probably before I should have. I had a reason, though, and I'll sort of talk about that. We can do a little recap of my trade yesterday in the live stream today. I think it's a good time to do that. And that's that. Short-term memory. Today's a new day. Make back the loss. So far, one green day, one red day in the month. Net profitable. But just want to try to get together a nice routine. Some momentum behind me is really the key now to start the month. So that's my little spiel from yesterday. Not a bad day. Definitely, it was a red day, but I think it was still an in-control day for me, so I'm really not too upset about it. If you think adventure is dangerous, you should try routine. It's lethal. I love that. That's the quote of the day. With that said, let's get started. Press that like button. If you guys are new here, subscribe. And let's get started. Let's go to the circle. So, today, let's get the lights on. There we go. Today, come on now. There we go. So, let's start with economic calendar, really nothing. So not too concerned about the economic calendar today. Earnings today, AMD after hours. That's probably the biggest event in the after hours is AMD and SMCI. So not going to be trading either of those today. But yesterday, Palantir, huge move on this one. Congratulations to Palantir shareholders, including myself. I own this at 34, and I'm sure a lot of you guys probably own it lower than I do. So, man, incredible earnings for Palantir. $1 billion in revenue for the first time. what a story, right? What a success story. What an insane, what a great stock, man. I mean, the opportunities are just ridiculous on this stock. $5 back in 2023, now at $171 post earnings today. It's what it's Palantir is it's basically the peak of opportunity in the stock market, right? When you think of opportunity in the stock market, I think everyone just thinks of Palantir, right? I mean, that's it. A retail stock that at one point no one liked, including myself, right? And then people warming up to it, and then people being forced to like it. And that's something that the CEO actually said on I read his little investor little document he wrote, and he's like, now people are forced to like our company, right? You just can't not like it anymore. So it's such a success story. Just awesome to see, really. I mean, just awesome. So congratulations. I wanted to say congratulations to Palantir shareholders, man. Obviously, I wish I owned a little bit more of this, but I'm happy nonetheless that I do have a part of it. Definitely. So that's that. HIMS. This is the one I own more of, and it went down, but I still think HIMS had a great earnings, good numbers. HIMS likes to drop and pop and drop and pop, so just stay in the course, right? Same way people stayed the course, Palantir, in the 50s and the 30s, back in the 20s, right? I'm staying the course here. But yeah, big rejection for HIMS, 65, down to the 53 area. I don't look at this stock on a daily basis. It's just the same concept as Palantir, right? Just hold it, let it be, and long-term road, right? But anyways, those were the two big earnings yesterday. What's next? Let's just get into the charts. Nasdaq futures. So Nasdaq futures yesterday, hourly chart, 22.8. I mean, that's really the level that did it all, right? 22.8 on Friday of last week. Unbelievable hold. 22.800, 22.800, sick hold, and straight back up to fill the gap. The key hold yesterday, which, it happened in the pre-market, but I should have been more open to, and I guess maybe it was just a straight up move off the open, which sort of messed me up yesterday. Wish we didn't just get straight up off the open, but what happened yesterday was very clean. We had this rejection on Friday, which turned into support in the pre-market, and that was pretty much just your reclaim ripper, right? That was it, right? The entire move yesterday was based off of this right here. Why is that? Because on Friday, we failed it, right? And on yesterday pre-market, we held it. And that was right around 7:30, 8 o'clock, turning this Friday rejection into support. That was really it. From that point, it was ready to go, and all you needed to do was let that bell ring. And once the bell rang, it was like, okay, we're going straight up. And that's pretty much what we did. Now, after we got the straight up move, there was a nice little pullback. And, I think maybe just a little bit of wrong levels there for me slightly yesterday. Looking back at this, I can see where my mistake, where the mistake happened. But we can see here on the Nasdaq futures, we had these previous rejection points right here. This is the Friday rejection, right? Early morning rejection right here. And then this little fail point right here around 23,170. That was the exact pullback, little break and retest, hold, and continuation move for the rest of the day, right? You see how these rejections right here turned into a support, right? That was exactly what kept your market higher. Now, for me, what I did yesterday, we could just quickly recap this, which I can see is a very big mistake and why I ended up losing. I tried to short the fail back under this intraday low, where I was seeing a previous support here turn into a rejection back under the daily 20. So I initiated a short entry right under that area, right under the daily 20, looking for this to fail back lower. And what happened was I was just shorting back into this area, which was incorrect, right? You can see how I think my entry model was actually a valid idea, where we were holding above the daily 20, right? And then we were failing below the daily 20. So I thought I had some validity to the idea. I wasn't just like sort of chasing a high and shorting a high. I was waiting for some kind of a lower high, which was here pretty nice looking, but The reason I lost is because I was shorting into this demand, right? So that was, something I can see that I did wrong looking back at these charts, and that's all I can do, right? When you take a losing trade, you're gonna take losing trades in your career. There's no one that doesn't. Just make sure you look back at it. Make sure you understand what went wrong. Make sure you understand what you should have done differently, and improve from it. That's all I can do, right? That's it. I mean, there's nothing else to say. So I can see where it went wrong. I was shorting back into this high, right? That was holding as support, and that was just totally incorrect. So that was actually the best long, right? I was shorting where the best long was. So I was just on the wrong side of the market, simply put. So mistake there, but moving on. Today, we have a major spot above that needs, in my opinion, we need to break back above. To me, it's actually a little bit higher. It's like right here. Yeah, it's actually 500. Okay. It's anywhere between this 500. I'm gonna fine tune this in a second. This is gonna be an interesting area though. Let me keep it here for now. Let me show you where I'm looking at today. It's right here. Look at this hourly chart. So here's your hourly chart, right? Look at these highs. Right here, highs 420. Highs 420. Here's some lows in this area between, it's like 460, 420. See those lows, right? See these highs here, these lows here, right? And then look at the rejection there from Thursday. So look at this right here. If we go to the hourly chart, let's zoom in. So here on the hourly chart, right? The downside happened on Thursday after we failed right here. So the hourly high of this candle is 465. I'm going to bring this up to 465. 465 is the high of this hourly candle right here. See this? Right there. That little hourly wick high is 23,465. I believe you need to reclaim that spot today, right here. 23,465. You do not want to get stuck with that rejecting again today, right there. That would also line up, like we talked about, with these lows, right? And then it would line up with these highs. Highs, lows, right? And when you failed that on Thursday, you can see the failure and the downside continuation. So for me today, I want to see the Nasdaq futures clear out that 465 high right here. If we can clear back over that high and we can get a nice break and hold above this zone, that to me would bring you back to that 23,615, right? And to be honest, I think that brings you right back to all-time highs. It would bring you at least to this high here and these highs here. Above that, you're going all-time high. So for today, I need to see a reclaim above this 424.65 zone. The same way we reclaimed this high, right, and turned it into support. The same way we reclaimed this high and turned it into support. See how we did that? We had a rejection high, turned into support, turned into support. So now I want to see this rejection high turn into support. If that happens, upside it is, right? Very clearly. So that is going to be a very, very key watch for me today. Now, if we reject this level, I no longer am interested in the true downside continuation. It's no longer valid. You're back over the daily 20. You're back over some very clear retest, reclaim levels. At this point, I believe a pullback from this rejection point, if we do get a sort of short-term rejection here today, I think a pullback towards that daily 20, right, and towards that 23,185 is still a very nice long opportunity, right? In my opinion, the best long opportunity is likely back towards this daily 20 and back towards this 23,200, 23,180 area. This would be a really nice early morning rejection leading to downside, back to the daily 20, back to this demand zone, and then a nice opportunity back to the upside. That would be great, right? Cool off from this sort of straight up move yesterday. Give us a little bit of downside action. Give us that daily 20 pullback and 23,200 pullback. Start to see buyers step up again here on a retest of this low and these highs, and then find that next long back above the daily 20 and back into the 420, 465. That would be ideal. Now, do we get that? I don't know. Do we just sort of squeeze again off the open? Do we just open and do this and then sort of have to look for that pullback? That is very possible as well. So we'll have to see what today brings. But for now, 465, 420 is a rejection point, which I'll show you on the ES. It lines up very clearly. Pullback longs definitely in session today, no doubt. All right, definitely in session as long as we hold above 23,185. I do not think at this point, right? I think at this point, as long as you're over this low from yesterday, you are good for the pullback long, right? If you fail back under this low from yesterday, that's when I think things could change again, right? Which would be surprising, but it could happen. So in my opinion, if you look at yesterday's action, right, as long as we're above this low from yesterday intraday, I think you are good to go for the pullback long. This would actually be the best spot right here, in my opinion. Now, yesterday's close, and we'll go ahead and look at the gaps on, on the intro, because gaps again are very key on this market. The gap down and the gap fill yesterday, and then yesterday we closed at. Let me go ahead and get the. I think I can look at the not including. Here we go. So we closed at 23,334. 23,330. I'm just going to go ahead and put this on the charts because I want to make sure I know where yesterday's close was. 23,334 is Monday's close. All right. So that's something I want to put on my charts. Let's keep that there. Monday's close. And if we put back on the after hours, we can see that is going to be the spot that would, sort of gap fill. And since we're on a gap up, right? So that's yesterday's close right there, 23,334. So that could be a spot, and you can see how that's trying to hold this pre-market. That would be, if we open here, a gap fill would be here, which could be an interesting spot, but not something, it's not, in my opinion, it's not the strongest spot. I would prefer daily 20. I would prefer 23,185. That would really be where I want to see it. Yeah, inverse head and shoulder is definitely possible here, right? This sort of is your inverse head and shoulder, right? This is your right shoulder. So I wouldn't mind, right, a pullback to that spot right here, right, and then create that opportunity back to the upside. Wouldn't mind a little cool off. Right after this sort of straight up move from yesterday. Wouldn't mind some of this, people maybe get back short, thinking that this is a short again, and then see if this holds up at the daily 20 and back at this 23,185. Definitely something I'll be looking for. Okay? I don't think the risk reward is proper being long into this spot today, unless you reclaim back above it. So as of right now, I don't think the risk reward is proper to be long into these lows and into this area right here, right? I just don't think that's correct. I think you want to see a reset, right? Let's reset the risk reward and then find the next long back into it. That's, in my opinion, what you'd want to look for. That or straight up retest, hold, long, right? That's the only other option. So that's my thesis on Nasdaq. On the ES, it's the same thing, right? So let's look at the ES. You can see it's pretty much the same read right here. ES hourly chart, you can see right here, 63.75 rejections, 63.75 rejections, 63.75 holds, 63.75 failure. 63.75 is where we failed here, right? That created this downside move. When you failed back under that Wednesday low and turned it into a high right here, you got straight down. And you can see, look at where we're trading. The exact 63.75. And you're starting to actually see some downside come in off of it. See, look at that. Pretty much, I don't know what just happened. 8:20, did we get news? Something may have just happened, but regardless, 63.75, that looks to be a spot. So let's watch that right there. 63.75. That's a really clear area. Now, if we get above this 63.75, I think you are pretty much good to go. To 6,400 And I think if you break above 6,400, I wouldn't see why you're not going to all-time highs, personally. Tariff 35% EU if it doesn't meet obligations. Okay, so we just got a little Trump tariff news there. That's what caused that little volatility right there. So 63.75 is the key spot. I need to see you get above that level today to re-enter the longs without a pullback, right? If we don't get a pullback, I need to see a hold over 63.75 to get the upside move. Okay? So over 63.75 into 6,400. Over 6,400, I think you're going to be flowing at that point. I mean, I think you'll be in flow state, for a lack of a better term. I mean, if you hold back above these lows and turn this back into support, something like this, this is really probably just going right back to ATH. So that's one read. The second read for me would be a pullback, and here's the pullbacks that I'd want to see. The pullbacks that I'd want to see today to find the long would be right here, right? You can see how these previous highs right here turned into support on the ES, which was extremely, extremely clean. All right, looking back at these charts, I just had maybe a little bit of something off yesterday because this is very, very nice, and I should not have been shorting back into that. You know, I definitely had to do a reassessment on these charts today. So you can see right here, this 63.25, 63.30 right there, that, you see how the ES just held above that all intraday yesterday? That was the exact previous rejections right here on the ES from Friday. So that was really clean. So a pullback to this spot, I think, would be a fantastic pullback long opportunity. If we do get this drop, right, I would definitely be interested to see if that maintains at 63.30, 63.25. That would be a great spot. I do not want to see you fail back under this. If you fail back under this, then you're probably trading back to the 62.95, 6300 spot to fill in that straight up move from yesterday. So this would be the level you want to see hold strong today if you want to stay bullish in the short term. Breaking that probably brings you back lower to 62.95, 6300. Pretty nice. I mean, besides that, you just got your daily 20 there, so you can keep an eye on that daily 20 to see if that maintains. But really, to me, it's right here. This is your zone today. It's either above 63.75 or a pullback back to 30.25 for your longs, right? Long thesis would be here or here, in my opinion. Those are your two long entries. One here, and the second one would be here. Those would be the top two long entries for me today. Only way I'd look to short this is if you failed back under this 30.25 spot. I would not look to short back into the daily 20, right? And I would not look to short back into this low right here. I would look to short if you got under this, rejected it, right? I would look to short here for a move back to this 6,300. That would be the only short right there for me. Okay? All right. I think that makes a lot of sense there on the ES. Let's see what happens at 63.75 today. Definitely a key level. SPY. So a little bit of discrepancy on the SPY. Just a tad, and I'll show you why there's some discrepancy here. Let me show you the exact levels in terms of time. Watch this. So if I go like this, pop that on, go to the chart, take that off, styles, load that. Okay. Let me take some of this off for now. So here's your discrepancy today. Let me show you in terms of where we are, how this is discrepant. Right here. So take a look at this right here, right? And what I want you to look at is these two spots right here. This spot here and this spot here. See that? This is the SPY. This is the S&P 500 futures. So on the S&P 500 futures, you are rejecting this high right here from July 21st. You are turning that. That is our 63.75 spot. On the SPY, you are holding that as support. Look at the difference there. So that's a little bit interesting. That's a little bit interesting, right? This is when things get a little bit questionable, right? Because do you say, hey, I'm long SPY and I'll hold back over this high? If you did that, you'd be also longing into the rejection of 63.75 on the ES. So a little bit of discrepancy there that makes our job just a little bit more fun. As it always, there's always something. So that's sort of interesting. That's something I'm watching carefully today, right? I'm going to have to be paying attention to what happens at those two spots. The SPY, if you get above, or I'm sorry, if the ES gets above 63.75, then I think that SPY hold is just going to sort of keep us, obviously the SPY would be holding at that point, and you'd be rocketing higher, pretty much. So I'm going to be watching those side by side today, and I just wanted to sort of point that out to you where that discrepancy is. You can see here on the SPY, this previous high right here is holding as support. Whereas on the ES, this high is turning into rejections. So just watch that today. Be careful of that today. If we just maintain this, that is going to be a reason for the market to stay higher, right? And that would probably bring the ES through that 63.75, and I would say that moves us into the 634, 635 area. You get above 635 here, you get above that rejection, and these fails here, right? If we see a 635 hold today, you're going to all-time highs. So 635, 634 zone is that key area that we need to get back above. I would look to see if 631.50 holds. And if it doesn't, I think the best pullback area today would be right in here. Right around that 628.50 to 629.50 zone. That would be the zone I'd be looking for the pullback longs. Right here. That's right here at these highs. That's right here at the yesterday low. And that's right at the daily 20 SMA. This would be the best long opportunity right in here. 628.50, 629.50. Pull back to the daily 20. Give us a nice retest. See if the buyers step in again. Okay? If we get under 628.50, right, and we fail back under the daily 20, then you have to be aware that this was straight up yesterday, and we could, right, see this fail quickly back lower. That would be giving back this straight up move. But that is only, again, that is only if you fail under 628.50. Because if you don't, that's actually a very bullish pullback right here. So 628.50 in that daily 20 is going to be the key spot. Chips are dropping on that news. Let's see. Yeah, a little bit, man. Not that much. We'll see. There's some levels below that I'd be watching on the SMH. We'll get into that in just a second. QQQ. So let's take a look at this on the QQQ now. On the QQQ, this area right around that 566. I'm actually going to adjust this slightly. It's like 566.30 to around 568. It's a little bit of a zone there, which is going to get a little bit questionable. What's the high of this hourly candle? 567.71. Let's put that exactly there. 566. What's the high of these candles? 566.30, just about. So you can see here on the QQQ, you're trading back into this high, into these highs, and back into that rejection from Thursday, which you're sort of sitting right in there now, right? And you can see that starting to fail a little bit. Similar to this Nasdaq area, right? We just talked about this Nasdaq area, 23,420, 23,465. That lines up pretty much perfect with this area here on the Qs between 566 and 568. It's not perfect, but it's a zone to be watching, right? We can see previous highs, previous highs, previous highs, into lows, into lows, into lows, into highs, right? This area right here is very questionable. On a pullback, where I think you'd want to see this hold if we get into the short-term action here, right? Right now, at least in the pre-market, it looks like this area, 564, 565, is trying to turn into support. So you can see how these were previous rejections, attempting to turn into support. Now, if we break below that 564.50 today, right? If we break below 564.50, I could see us coming back down, right? Back down to that daily 20, which would be my best spot, in my opinion. Back down to this 561, back down into this daily 20 SMA. Right here where the QQQ held intraday yesterday and created that upside, That could be your best spot to look for a re-entry long, right down there. That only happens if you actually see a breakdown on this QQQ, and I believe it would be under 564.50, right around here. Now, it's going to be a little bit questionable in my opinion, what happens, it looks like you're going to want to have a level right around this 563, right? Because there's probably going to be some reactions at that 563, I would assume. So I might put something there, right? You can see this morning high and these lows right there. That 563 on Qs probably has something to say. If we go to the Nasdaq futures, that's right. Okay, so that's pretty much right where that daily 20 SMA is going to match up. So you might want to put a little something there around 23,250 now that I look at this. Right around that 23,250 area, you might want to have a little something there. Just so you know that you don't want to be short into these. Well, I mean, you're already going to know not to be short into the daily 20, but you might want to just put something there. You can see this little area right here from yesterday on the Nasdaq, which lines up pretty much perfect with right here at the 563 on Qs. So 563 pullback could be something that holds right here. If you break that, daily 20, 561 would be the spots to look for, which line up pretty much perfect with your daily 20 on the Nasdaq, which is right here, and of course your 23, 185 spot. Okay. On the SPY, that's right here at our 629.50, and on the ES, that is right here, right around our. We can put a little spot there if we so please, right around our, right around our 63.43 area. Right in there. Right here. Daily 20 below 63.75. I would like to see us come back down, at least start testing some of these spots. Test the daily 20, test the 43, possibly test the 30, right? Come back down, test the 629.50, 628.50, come back down, test maybe this 563, 561 area. Look for those better pullback longs. Don't get long into this supply zone and back into this retest spot on the Nasdaq futures that was previously a previous hold and could become a rejection spot. ES 63.75, as we can see, is starting to find some failure. So lower levels, pullback levels, look to be something to be watching today. I think that's very, very clear. Okay. IWM, very nice reclaim back above the 218 spot yesterday after holding the 212 spot, which was our next major demand right here at 212. You reclaim 218. So today, what I would look for on the IWM is a pullback long at 218. I would look to see if we can pull back to this low, pull back to this 218, turn this into support on a pullback, and then look for that higher low to form. That could be very nice. I would watch 218 on the IWM. SMH. So the SMH, again, just turning that major demand zone into demand again. So when we zoom out, it's really just another major demand zone hold between 283, 280. Like we saw here and here, right, and here. Just another beautiful demand hold in this level below. Now today, I think you are heading into a major rejection point. So if you look here on the hourly chart, look at the SMH. You have a major high, a major high, a major high, a major high. This was a rejection 4 times in a row here on the SMH. This then was a support level on the SMH, which you can see once we failed back below led to some pretty aggressive downside. You can see today we are right back into that level. So do I think that risk reward is proper to long right back into this high? Probably not, right? This is probably a place for the SMH to cool off a little bit. Where do I think you could cool off a little bit on the SMH and still stay bullish? In my eyes, it would be right here around this 289, 288 area, right in here. Previous high right here, right? Turned into holds. I need to call this person back. Right here, previous highs right here, rejections. This would be your hold spot right there, 289. So look to see if we can get a pullback long at 289, I'd say, on the SMH today. That would be the spot to look for. If we can hold that 289 if we can turn this into support right at that daily 20, that would be the spot to look for a long opportunity back to the upside. Okay? 293.50 is your high to be careful of here. All right. So that is it for the Nasdaq, ES, SPY, Qs, IWM, and SMH. Let's go ahead and let's do Bitcoin real quick. If you guys could take 1 second, press that like button for me. Help me get to 1,500 likes. That would be ideal. Let's do that. Bitcoin. So, daily chart retest is still alive on Bitcoin. There is, some relative weakness on Bitcoin as of late, but this is still a very interesting spot, and I would be watching it. 113,800, 114,000. You can see previous major highs still trying to hold the support for now. So this is going to be a very interesting spot. I would be watching that area today on Bitcoin to see what it does. Okay. Are we getting clicking noises on the mic? No, I think we're okay. With that said, let's jump into some of my top watches today. Number 1 is Tesla. Surprising, but it is. There's a very interesting spot here on Tesla for both directions. A little bit more interested in the upside than the downside. But I would be watching this 312 spot for both directions. Either a 312 rejection or a 312 reclaim. I believe this 312 is actually a very important spot for Tesla here. If we look at this 30-minute chart, we can see previous lows 312 turning into failures yesterday at 312. So if we get a reclaim back above this level, I think you're going to see some pretty decent action to the upside filling in this straight down move. So over 312, I'm just going to go ahead and set an alert there, and I'm going to wait to see what Tesla does there today. 312, I think, is an interesting spot to be watching on Tesla. Let's look at some semiconductors. NVIDIA. So yesterday, I probably took the best trade in a long time on NVIDIA, but I didn't trust it, which is on me. And I think the reason I didn't was because the SMH was right. This is why I didn't trust NVIDIA, but I should have. In hindsight, obviously, it's easier to say, but I longed NVIDIA yesterday, and the SMH was trading right into its daily 20, right? And it was starting to show rejection. So I was worried that the SMH was going to reject the daily 20, right? And, fail back lower. That was my concern. But the SMH sort of just held up and eventually grinded through it. But I did have a valid concern to be careful being long semis into the daily 20 SMA. Now, what I needed to do differently on NVIDIA, which my entry point was about as perfect as it gets. It was straight from our pre-market game plan. Our pre-market game plan yesterday was to look for a break and retest hold above 176.50, which was the Friday high. That was our idea. And if we go down to the short-term time frames and we look at 176.50 yesterday, this was about as good of a break and retest as you'll ever see. All right, we got a break, we got a retest, we got a hold above 176.50. I took a long right here, right? That was my long entry, and I had to stop back below 176.50. Now, we got an initial pop for me in my direction, and the contracts were pretty damn slow, which sort of sucked, and I decided to take profits at this high. On a nice little break and retest long to start the day, get some profits behind me, and, start the day on a nice note, which was great. I mean, it was an awesome way to start yesterday. Now, what I always say, and I didn't follow what I say, and I won't always follow what I say because I'm a human, but what I always say is stay in the trade as long as it's above your retest level, right? Stay in the trade as long as your stop loss is not invalidated. And if I would have done that on NVIDIA yesterday, I would have never even been close to getting shaked out of that position, and I should have just held runners the entire day, right? I mean, there was just never a move even back under 176.50 after our initial entry. So, this is some of the problems that I've been having is like, I take my quick profit. I'm just not as trustworthy at the moment because I'm trying to build back my momentum. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have had these problems in the past, and it happens to me still 12 years later. But I look back at this and I say to myself, you know your rules. Your rules are break and retest long, key level, stay in it as long as it's above it. Don't panic out of anything. Don't shortchange yourself. And I shortchanged my position, and I took profits here. And the reason I took profits here is because around 9:55 yesterday, the SMH was showing me failures, right, at the daily 20 SMA, right? We were starting to see failures at this daily 20. So I was like, hey, let me not, be long NVIDIA with the SMH failing the daily 20, right? I don't think that makes sense, right? Just in my mind at that point, I was like, all right, in SMH failing the daily 20, I don't really feel like I should be long into the daily 20 on the SMH. If this rejects, I'm going to look back and say, well, you were long into the daily 20, it failed, and you were long and you lost, right? So that made a lot of sense in my mind at the time to sort of de-risk and take that profit off. Ends up being the wrong call, right? But I think, I did stick to a good thought process, and as long as I continue to stick to that process, I don't think it's going to fail me long term. Sometimes in the short term, you're going to see situations where, maybe you could have been a little bit more confident, just like yesterday on NVIDIA. But I think long term, that mindset will protect me. And that's, again, why I don't really have huge losses typically. It's just being that, extra cautious when you see things like that. But at times it will shortchange the position, and you can see it definitely did yesterday because NVIDIA pretty much went up all day. So that's just a little bit a story behind my trading yesterday, right? I think a decent idea. Obviously, it was the wrong call. But today, we're going to try to do the same thing, right? We're going to try to do the same thing. 179.50, 180 on NVIDIA, previous rejection point. Look what it's doing this pre-market. It's holding right above it. I mean, you can't ask for a better hold on NVIDIA right now. So what I would be looking for today is NVIDIA to prove to you that it's going to hold this 179.50, 180 on a pullback and try to set up a long entry using that level, targeting a move back to 184. That would be a fantastic look. I think you do need to hold back above this 179.50 though. I would not want to see us fail back under these highs from yesterday, all right? I do not want to see NVIDIA fail back under this area here. If we fail back under this, then that gets a little bit concerning for maybe a move back down. So today, I'd like to see some pullbacks get bought up here in this 180, 179.50 and try to set up a long using that level as my risk. I like that idea today. AMD, I'm not interested in today. It has earnings after hours, so I'm going to leave this one alone. Just if you are watching AMD, watch out for 180. Definitely a level that's starting to fail. Broadcom. Yesterday, again, similar story, right? I was long Broadcom on the 295 retest, which was exactly our game plan. We talked about this in the pre-market live stream. We said, let's long on a break and retest over 295. That would be a reclaim here and a reclaim here. I did that. I profited. I didn't get full profits, though. And it was pretty damn slow, so I'm really not too upset about this one. But the break and retest over 295 held up all day and eventually did grind higher into like 298, which was really nice. So today I'm going to look for the same thing. What am I going to look for on Broadcom? Give me a little classic Broadcom dip and rip. We see it all the time on Broadcom. If I get a little dip and rip at 295 on Broadcom, that is going to be a spot I am watching for a long today. All right, so those are the two semis that I'm interested in today. Broadcom and NVIDIA. Maybe MU back over 108, but probably not. I just don't really like trading MU. It's just not as clean to me. But NVIDIA and Broadcom, those are my two semis I'm watching. The next thing I'm watching, the two large cap tech names that I'm watching are Meta and Microsoft. So let's get into those. Meta. Yesterday, we talked about the break, and I mean, let's just all bask in the glory of the break and retest of all-time highs. Why don't we do that for a second? That is unbelievable. I mean, the previous all-time high and the break and retest here on the daily chart is something of pure beauty. So you can see here, gap up on earnings, pull back, previous all-time high, rocket ship off that level. Unbelievable, beautiful setup. What an opportunity that was. Now on Meta yesterday, right, my idea was a long over this previous high at around 767, 770 area. And you can see yesterday, if we go to that 767, this was incredible. This was a Friday high, and we'll take a look at 767 yesterday on the 1-minute chart. Take a look at this. Right here. 767, 767. Look at this right here. Perfection. Break and retest strategy works, right? There's nothing wrong with, right, if you trade the break and retest, right? You need to understand, if you're failing, if you're not doing well, it's not that the break and retest is not a valid strategy. That is 100% valid. It always is. Break and retest is a valid trading strategy. It's about how good you execute it, right? So it's just about execution. This on Meta is about as perfect as it gets once again. We can see, all right, if we go to the 5-minute chart, there is a previous very clear high at 767. It also turned into a failure point on the intraday yesterday at 767, right here and right here. And you can see this was the exact break and retest long that set up yesterday on Meta. Unbelievable. So clean. Very nice trade on Meta there yesterday, and pretty much held that for the rest of the day, which was awesome. So today, what I'm going to look for is possibly another pullback to that level today. That would be really nice to set up possibly our inverse head and shoulder on Meta for just a huge breakout opportunity. If Meta pulls back to the 770, 767 zone today and starts to find demand again, this could be a fantastic opportunity. Obviously, Meta is going to get a little bit tired at the 781, 785 zone at these previous highs, right? But I will definitely be watching 767, 770 area, okay? Okay. 781, 785, 770, 767. Meta, that's my watch area today. Microsoft. This is my next major watch. I really like what Microsoft is doing today. I really like this. And I hope that this plays just beautifully. Microsoft. Lows. 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 Left shoulder. Head. Right shoulder. Really nice. Neckline. 540. Right there. 540.32. Failure. 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 Right here. If Microsoft can get over this level today, you have a huge opportunity, in my opinion, up to 552. This is my top watch of the day. 540.32 Microsoft, big watch. Big watch. Coinbase, not too interested today, but definitely staying weak. See if it rejects that 50 SMA again. The other two that I'm watching are Hood and Palantir. Actually, Hood, Palantir, and OKLO, which have been just red hot stocks. Hood, 108 to 110. This is supply. I wouldn't really want to be long into there. I would be looking for a pullback to that 102, possibly back to this 104.50 spot. So watching 104.50 and 102 today on Hood for pullbacks right here. 104.50, these highs, or this 102 area. That's going to be something I'm watching. A little bit cautious of being long into 108, 110. Palantir, some very nice pullback levels to be watching today on Palantir. So looking at Palantir, we're watching 168, 165, and 162. These are pullback long spots for me today on Palantir. Over 172, you got nothing. So watching those today. Last one I'm watching today is OKLO. And that is going to be OKLO. Look at the break and retest in the 4-hour. Look at the consolidation above this high on the 4-hour. This looks incredible. If OKLO can break out over 80, I'm all game for this one today. All right. That's going to be it. That's going to be it. I hope you guys have a fantastic trading day. Appreciate that D-Mill. Love the new brand. Yeah, I like the new logo. Shout out Amped for helping me out with that. The Insiders. Yeah, a little bit more broader appeal than just Options Insider, because you guys know in the chat we are trading and watching futures all day, man. So it's not just options. So I need it to be, a little bit more open with, it's not just options. Everything we look at can be applied to futures, can be applied to trading anything, can be tried to trading crypto. Crypto does some beautiful break and retest. It's all about price action. It should just be the price action trading community. That's really it. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the live stream. I hope you found some valuable information. Again, it's free to be here. All I ask from you is if you could press the like button. If you could subscribe to the channel. If you come here every day and you're not subscribed, please consider just pressing the subscribe button. Helps me out a lot. Keeps me motivated, right? There's no reason not to press the subscribe button if you show up every day. That's just sort of ridiculous in my mind. So help me out. Press the like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Peace out.